Hey, everybody. I was thinking about something today. Getting up in the years where I'm past the long side of my life and I'm well into the short side of my life. But I was kind of curious with you guys. Have you ever had a near-death experience? And I'm not talking about you had to swerve to miss a oncoming car or something, or you saw something falling down and you jumped out of the way, or something coming at you and you moved out of the way. I'm talking about something that was so far out of the realm of your control that you should be dead, but you're not. Talking about that. I'm talking about that moment when nothing that you do is going to save you, but somehow you're still here. I've had a couple. And I don't know if this is just a therapy for me to talk about it and share it with you. Um, but I thought I'd share it with you, and if it helps somebody else, then good. I've talked about this to many people, so it's not something I've held in and stuff for myself and dealt with, even though I've sort of dealt with it over the years. But I'm going to share it with you guys, and if it helps somebody out there to put a piece of their life together and understand something, I hope it's as therapeutic for them as it is for me. Excuse me. The first event, I'm going to share two of them with you. The first event happened years and years ago. My kids were little tiny kids. I'm not even sure, I don't remember the exact date, but I'm not even sure my daughter was born yet. I know my son was born, and he was probably right around 1 year old or so when this happened. I was just a newbie at fallen timber, way, way back in the day. Um, Somewhere around 1987-ish, somewhere in there, 86, 87. Anyway, we were working in a place called Covelo, California. I was working for a company, a guy named Tom Jones Timber Fallen. And we were logging up out of a place called Blue Nose. And I'd been cutting. We'd already had one guy on our job get seriously injured. And to this day, he's partially paralyzed, but I haven't been in contact with him in years. And his twin brother, ended up, like, within the next day or so, cutting his leg, but it was just a flesh wound. It wasn't anything debilitating. But we worked out there that whole summer, and I was living in a town called Yuba City, California at that time. My wife and I were staying there with her grandmother. And it was from Yuba City to Covelo, it was about 4.5 hours drive one way. So I'd stay over there all week. I'd camp out. And we'd been working there for quite a while. I was cutting up this ridge line on this yarder block. And the hill had come up, and it was kind of down a ridge, a sloping ridge, and I was cutting up one side of the ridge, taking that angle of that slope up. And the brush was thick. I mean, the closer I got to the top, the brush got thicker, and it got all entangled. It was this, what we call buckbrush out here in California. It actually was like wild lilac bushes. And they were so thick, you couldn't hardly even get through them. It was just like, they're about 10 feet tall, somewhere in there. And I was working on a tree. It was a Doug fir, and it was probably, you know, 38, 39, maybe 40 inches. Wasn't a very big tree. Two long logs maybe in it. And, we were following everything side hill at that point. Yes. So I was going to follow this tree side hill, and out towards the point of the ridge was this oak tree that was probably about, 24 inches on the base. went up, oh, I don't know, 12 feet or so, and it had a kink in it. So it was leaning out off the hill, and it had a kink in it, and then the rest of the branches were out here. So it went up and kinked out. So I thought, I'm gonna fall this fir right above that and land it right at the base of that tree. So I faced it up, started cutting, things started moving, and as I was sawing it up, I saw that the top was so heavy, or just heavy enough, I should say. It wasn't a big tree. It started to drift a little, and I saw that it was going to hit the kink of that oak tree instead of land down at the base of the oak tree. It was going to hit up here. So I pulled my saw out, tossed it on the ground, and I started scrambling uphill and away from the stump. But the brush was so thick that I couldn't get through it, so I had to end up getting on my hands and knees and just clawing my way through the brush. And I looked over my shoulder, and that fir tree hit that oak tree right at the elbow where it kinked out and popped the butt end off the stump. And it became this giant teeter-totter on this oak tree. And that butt end swung up, and it swung over my head, and I'm all tangled up, and I brush across my shoulders, and I'm trying to fight my way through these bushes. And I'm looking up over my shoulders, and here this log comes, this tree, coming right over my back, probably about, I don't know, 5-6 feet up in the air, coming right at me, and I'm on my hands and knees. And the only thought that went through my head was, damn, they're just gonna find a wet spot and my boots and my clothes, because it was coming down on me. And that thing started falling, and about as high as I could reach up like this over my back, which would have put it maybe 1.5 feet, 2 feet over my head, it just stopped in midair. It just came down and it hovered there in midair. And I'm literally looking at this thing, just staring at this thing. I can't move, I can't do anything. I'm all tangled up in the brush. And then about as slow as this, it slowly swung back towards my feet, just painfully slow. And as soon as it cleared my boots, boom, it just slammed in the ground. And I took a deep breath and it's like, oh, crap. Got up, dusted myself off, grabbed my saw, plugged my tape in, bucked a 40-footer off of it, limbed it up, cut a second 40-foot off the top, and then went back and fell another tree. And I fell that tree, knocking the limbs, bucking the limbs off that tree as I'm walking down the tree, and my legs just turned to jelly, and I just like collapsed. So I'm sitting on this log. I don't know how long I'm sitting on this log. I'm just sitting there, just completely zoned out. The realization of I should be dead right now. And one of the other followers, an old guy, and for the life of me, I can't remember his name, came up, climbing all the way up that hillside to check on me. And we started talking. Told him what happened, and he said, well, I came up because it's been over an hour. Nobody's heard your saw. I came to make sure you're okay. I said, appreciate that. He said, it's Friday anyway. Let's just pack out and go home. So he headed off down the mountain. And sad to say, the very next week, that gentleman, the only one that came up to check on me, got hit by a madrone branch and killed him. And I tried to go to his funeral. I got as far as the gate, and I had to turn around. I couldn't do it. But back to the story. I packed down the mountain, loaded my stuff in the truck, drove down to my camp, got what I needed to take back home for resupplying, and I headed out. And I got to Willits, California. I drove from Covelo down to Highway 101 to Willits. And I remember the metal arch in Willits. It says, welcome to Willits. And that's the last thing I remember until I suddenly woke up and I was driving across the Golden Gate Bridge coming into San Francisco on Highway 101. I don't remember anything between Willits, California, and the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. Why I went that way, I have no idea. How I got there, I have no idea. I don't remember driving any of that distance. That's probably, I don't know, 2.5, 3 hours on Highway 101 to get from Willits to San Francisco. Back then, the speed limit was like 55. So I ended up driving from into San Francisco and across the Bay Bridge and up towards Davis, California, and then cutting back up through, I think it's the 113 to 99 into Yuba City. And I got home about 1:30 in the morning, and I'm fumbling with my keys because the porch lights are off, messing with the door, trying to get it unlocked, and my wife opens the door. She's like hot mad at me, like, "Where have you been? We've been trying to get a hold of you." Not that they could get a hold of me because I didn't have a cell phone back then, so she was like, had no clue where I was and all that stuff, and worried sick, and here's 1:30 in the morning. And I just looked her dead in the eye and said, "You know what? Feels good to have somebody mad at me." And she just zipped up. Didn't ask, explain, or nothing. Just, it was late. I'm going to bed. I'm glad somebody's mad at me. I'm glad that I'm alive, that somebody could be mad at me. And here's a curious thing for me, is I left Covelo probably between 1:30 and 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It takes 4.5 hours to drive to Ukiah, cross Highway 20 to Williams, and straight across to Yuba City. I don't know why it took me till 1:30 in the morning to get to Yuba City. I have this huge time gap, not just mileage-wise between Willows and the Golden Gate Bridge that I can't remember, but there's a huge time gap that's completely displaces all that I have no idea where I was, and I have no idea how I got to where I got. But to this day, that log coming down and hovering and then just moving really slow over my back and my legs and then crashing down to the ground behind me, I can't explain that. I should be dead. I should have died back in the mid-'80s. But I'm here. I'm here for a reason. I have no idea what that reason is, but I'm here. So yeah, I can't give you an honest answer as to why that log just hovered in the air and what happened to the time that I have no memory, or how I drove from Willits to San Francisco and I don't remember a thing in between. It's weird. That was my first near-death experience with time distortion that I have no account for. My second weird near-death experience, it's been a few years ago, but a lot more recent. I was kayaking with a buddy of mine named Chuck Lees, and he was all fired up. We wanted to do, what creek is it? Hat Creek up out of, right next to Highway 36, just outside of Lassen Park. It's a lava creek that goes through a lot of lava fields, and there's tons of lava tubes and stuff out there. But this creek has a series of drops and waterfalls and different things on them, and it's really tight and technical, and very few people do it, mostly because it's got a lot of log jams in it and stuff. But we was like, okay, let's go do it. We're all fired up back then. I was like, yeah, gung ho, let's do it. We're having a good time. We're jumping back and forth, who was in the front and who was in the back. Mostly he was in the front because he'd done it before, and I hadn't. I didn't know what to expect coming up. So we're bebopping down these little cascades and lava drops and stuff in our kayaks. And it was, it's a low volume creek up there. It gets more volume farther down you get, but up where we were, it's fairly low volume. But it has pretty good gradient. We came around this one corner, and he's in front of me probably about, 25 yards, maybe a little closer. I see him go off this lip, down off this waterfall, and disappear. And I'm on the approach, and I come off, and I see him in the pool below the waterfall going around the next corner as I come off the waterfall. And I come off the waterfall, and what he didn't see and what I didn't see was in the fall, in the cascading water falling down, was this log about this big around, wedged behind the waterfall just to where it wasn't making any spray. And my boat came down across that coming off the waterfall, and it rocked up, and then it sucked back down against the wall of the waterfall behind the log with my nose sticking straight up in the air of my boat. And the water was hitting my helmet and creating this air pocket. So I'm backwards, vertically pinned in this waterfall, and it shoved my boat over to the left wall, and it's just nothing but lava on my left side, and my spray skirt is jammed up against all this gnarly, sharp lava, and I can't get it off. I'm tugging and pulling, and meanwhile I'm crunching forward, but in a inverted position, backwards, leaning up, trying to keep my head in an air pocket, and the water's just pounding down on me. And as I'm struggling, trying to figure out how to get out of this thing, and at that point, I'd lost my paddle. I was in there a long time, and I'm trying to wiggle my boat free, trying to get it free, just jerking it around and pushing off the wall and pushing off the log, and I'm just wedged in there, just tight as can be. And my boat's just pulsing because the bow of my boat is sticking up through the cascading water, and my head is creating an air pocket, and my boat's just vibrating. And what I'm afraid is going to happen is my boat's going to eventually fatigue out and bend over and break my legs over the top of this log, and then I'd be stuck in there and drowned. And then the weirdest thing happened. I was getting really tired and fatigued, holding myself crunching forward with my legs straight up in the air in this jackknife position. And I'm slowly sinking, and the water's slowly coming up because I'm getting weaker and weaker and weaker, to where the water's literally right under my nose, and I'm having to just trying to get my breath. I still had this pocket of air, but my whole body was slowly being pushed down to where that pocket of air was getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And then the strangest thing happened. I suddenly could see in 3 dimensions, and I don't know how to explain this, and I don't know if anybody has ever had it, but not only could I see forward with my eyes and see the blue sky through the water, but I could see the rock behind me, all the way behind my head. I could see the rest of the waterfall off to my right. I could see the log through my boat, and I don't have a transparent boat. And I could see the bottom of the creek. I could see the bottom of the waterfall. I could see the bottom of the creek. And it was the weirdest thing because it was like, if you can imagine looking through you watch some of those movies where they show what it looks like when a bat sees with their sonic sound, or a dolphin and a whale sees with its sonar, and they represent that in some of these movies of what it might look like. That's what it looked like. It looked like not black and white, not full color, but kind of this neutral gray tone, so to speak. But I could see all the details. I could see the rocks, I could see the movement, I could see everything, the bubbles, and I could see literally behind my skull and all the way around. And like it was one big 360 three-dimensional panoramic vision. And I'm sitting there thinking, this is super weird. I'm probably gonna die today. And I start pushing my hips back, trying to get out of my spray skirt. And because I could get out of my spray skirt even if I couldn't pop it. I could just slide right through the tube. It's just neoprene. But I decided, okay, I'm gonna give it one last try, and I jerked my spray skirt and literally ripped a gash in it pulling it off the lava rock. So now my cockpit's open and my boat is actually starting to fill with water, and I'm sinking even farther. And I'm scooting myself in this jackknife position backwards. And I got so far to where I could go, but my knees were locked and I couldn't make the turn against the rocks behind my back. I couldn't get any farther and pull myself up to get my legs out. And then a thought occurred to me. It's like, well, a lot of times when you're in a bad hydraulic, the only way out is down. So I said, I'm going to drown here. The water was already up to my nose, and I was barely able to take any more air. So I pulled myself up as hard as I could, got one big breath of air, and I let the water just shove me down backwards, and I kind of folded sideways. I completely inverted, head straight down, and the water just sucked me out of my boat, slammed me on the bottom of the waterfall where my boat was, and then my body just literally wrapped around the stern of my boat. So I had the boat right here against my ribs. My arms were on one side, and my legs were on the other side, and I'm tacoed against the stern of my boat. And this whole time, I still had this multi-dimensional vision. Even though I was underwater, I could see it just as easy as I'm looking at you right here through this camera. Just I could see it. I don't know how to explain it. And then my boot on my foot got sucked off my foot from the force of the water. And I thought, well, if my boot can go that way, I'm going that way. So I just completely relaxed, melted out, flushed out around my boat, and popped up. And the funny thing was, when I popped up, my boot was floating on the surface right in front of my face, and I just grabbed my boot, took a big breath of air. And at that moment, Chuck was coming over this lava rock, coming back because I hadn't showed up, and he saw my paddle come around the corner, and he was scrambling to get out because it's, lava walls, cliffs on both sides of the creek. It took him all that time to climb back to me, and he was coming over the top of this lava rock up on the cliff just as I popped up from underwater. And yeah, he was pretty white in the face. He was pretty scared. I was pretty scared. But I swam to shore, put my boot back on, and then he got his ropes and stuff, and it took us quite a while to rope my boat out of there. Anyway, needless to say, I'm still here. We roped my boat out. We finished the run, and it was right before the last really big drops on that run before the takeout. And we had technically a good day, but yeah, this weird stuff happens to me, and I had this near-death experience of almost drowning, completely out of my control, to where at that point, everything was literally beyond my control. My decision-making skills were out the window because I didn't know what to do. But I'm still here. I don't know why. If any of you have had some strange experiences, comment below or make a video and share it. We're all here for a reason. I'm going to be 60 this year. I still don't know what that reason is. But I'm still here. I'm still kayaking. Last Sunday went out, Sean and I, and the river was when I got home and checked the gauge, it was 11,600. And big and pushy and big whirlpools, big boil lines, big holes. But it was a lot of fun. But, we were out in nature doing our thing. And yeah, people think we're crazy, but, sometimes you just got to get out of the house, away from the TV, away from all that stuff, and just reconnect with the planet you live on. I mean, we're here. This is real. This is real. Connect with reality. I do believe that we as people have stuff about us that exceed anything that we can imagine. Just got to figure out how to tap into it. All right, well, I hope this helps somebody out there struggling with an event that they can't explain in their life. It helps me to talk about it. I'm still here. I'm glad I'm still here. Lived through some ups and downs in life, and I'm sure I'll live through some more. But one thing it has taught me, especially being a timber faller, and having other accidents, but nothing that I can say was completely out of my control, is I'm not afraid of death. It's just the next horizon line on that next adventure, and whatever's beyond it. All of us are going to go there. So why be afraid of it? Take care, live life to the fullest, live life for the moment, live life for the future, but live life. Don't just exist. Live. And live free of fear. Be happy. Love those who are around you. Don't hate your enemies, but for sure don't hang out with them. And just live. Live life. Grasp it. Take it. Carpe diem. Seize the day. Whatever it is you like to do, no matter how crazy or silly it is, if it's something you enjoy, go do it. As long as it's healthy, it helps you, it helps others, and it heals your soul. All right, George Williams Sr., this video's probably one of the longest videos I've done. I'm sitting here yammering, so I'm going to sign off. You guys take care. Love you all. Peace be with you. Have a great day.